I literally spent 3 hours on this post for 6 people to like it. What am I doing?
When you did the video where you said, I don't know if you guys realize this, but I pray for you every day. And I just thought that's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Like, they root for you on the way up and they cheer for you to fall once you've accomplished whatever it is that they were hoping to accomplish. Like, for no other basis, you're like, you seem like you're succeeding. Boo. You're like, that's a thing? My contrarian stance is that I work hard and some things have worked out. Like, so many other things have not worked out.
I have total compassion for your wife because I remember when my mom died and they'd say, oh, you know, I saw so-and-so on TV or whatever. And I would just blurt out, I don't care. My mom just died.
So the first post, I was like feeling this conviction. I was like, I'm just going to jump and do it. I've just learned enough of that muscle to be like, if I feel like I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I love Bridget. You guys are the same way. You're like, I didn't want to do the podcast. Doing the podcast. Here we go.
Matt Deseno, thank you so much for joining us today for the very first Leverage and Lead podcast. And I just wanted to tell everybody, because I know they don't know the story and I'm dying to tell it. So Matt, first of all, you're a total legend in the HighLevel community. For those of you who don't know Matt, you must be brand new to HighLevel, like day one, because I literally signed up for HL Pro Tools on day 2 of signing up for HighLevel. On day 2, I brought 70 clients with me, and I was like, I reached out to the HighLevel community and I said, who can I hire for support? And Sean Clark commented and said, tagged Matt Deseno. And that was my first experience meeting you. And honestly, I love HL Pro Tools. I'm an affiliate because I love HL Pro Tools. But I honestly I feel like I just got to know you, honestly. And we talked about this a lot at the summit when we were all sitting at the table. And this is kind of what birthed the podcast. And we were talking about you and your sudden posting on social media and just you sharing like who you are as a person. And it just like, it inspired me. And that's why I had to talk to you. And I just had to keep encouraging you to share these things on social media. So I absolutely love it.
I appreciate that encouragement. Yeah, no, it was super funny to talk in person. And I think I am unaware of just all of the non-life that I'm participating in, basically all of the digital identity that you have, that I'm not that, it's like, you don't see that, or I don't see that. And I just live in my day-to-day world there and do my stuff and forget that there's this whole kind of like gap. You realize as an entrepreneur that if you don't fill it, I don't know, there's just silence, but it gets filled with something, and it's just unintentional versus intentional.
And I think like, I'm a firm believer in like, when I'm choosing something to promote or I'm choosing like someone to partner with in my business, I focus more on the leaders of the company, even more so than the actual, like if it's a software, because I told you this, I feel like the leaders, even if the software or service is not up to par, the leaders will make it that way. The leaders will make it to where it's something that is beneficial to you. While we were sitting at the table, this conversation that we were having just about, business and all of these things, and just for everyone listening or watching, they actually ran us out of the room because they were trying to set up for something else. And as soon as we walked out, Matt, you said to me, you should create a podcast. And I immediately said, no, I don't want to do that, because that was like my own fear that was speaking. And I think that a lot of times as business owners, we kind of put this wall up. For me, I do tutorial videos. I'm comfortable doing that. And I think that there's this fear, if we allow people to see us as the people that we really are, that maybe they won't really like that person. Maybe Bridget Bartlett has an opinion that they disagree with. And that's the fear that we all fear. And I don't know, Matt, if you feel the same way, but I would love for you to kind of share what prompted you to start sharing, like who you are as a person, and also a little bit about, the hesitation to even share those things.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I I think our business growth was sort of like accidental. I don't want to say like accidental, but it felt like that. It feels this way. Whenever you set a goal, you hit it and you keep going, you realize like, man, the day to day just feels like head down, solve a problem. You're just so focused on like one step in front of the other. This is so hard for folks. This concept, it truly is about, in my case, trusting God with the next step. But whatever it is, just focusing on the next step and just doing the next step, those mount up to marathons and incredible accomplishments. I think some folks are scared to start because like, I need to have the full path. I need to know exactly what step 1,000 is going to look like. And so they just never start. But so for me, I was just head down, doing the thing. And I think I'm just naturally inclined to love the present moment. Like there's a pro and con to this. My wife knows too. It's like my phone is constantly on D&D. Like now, there's nothing else going on in my world. I'm just like present here right now. I just prefer to operate that way. And so that actually makes it pretty hard digitally because you kind of want to like be in all the places, or you're just constantly removing yourself out of like, if I'm posting, that means I'm literally not being present here wherever I am. And so that was a hard balance, and I never found a way to do it well. And I think I also had a high priority for the folks that were in front of me. It was like my family, my wife, my kids, and I always wanted to be really present for them. And so I'm just more inclined to like literally put my phone in the drawer and forget about it and have it on D&D, and the world could be burning down. I'm like, well, I'm here right now. And pros and cons to that, right? Like there's a gift in some way, and then there's a tension in other ways. Like people say like, well, what would you do like if you're constantly in D&D? Like honestly, the people around us, they know, they just reach out to my wife. Like there's an emergency, a critical thing, they just reach out to her. She's the gatekeeper of like actually can be available in a minute by minute basis there. Or other people, like you can set things in your phone where it's like my wife can call through, my business partner can like double ring through, and they can break the D&D wall there. But getting back to posting, so I think I was never super, I didn't love it. I don't love social media, which is maybe weird for folks. It's like, I don't love that it takes me out of being present now. I always felt like torn in that way. And I've shared this before. A big driving thing for me, it's so hard to say, but it's just a reality, is like I'm really directed away from habits that I see in my father. I think this like leading fear for me is that if I realize I thought if I ever ran out of money, I'd become the worst version of my father. And so that was a driving thing in the business there. You think about it like that, it's like, oh my gosh. And so that pain point was present there. And growing up, my dad was an early adopter of like a cell phone. And he was, I mean, I don't know, and maybe everyone had a cell phone, but to me, we're like, my mom worked night shift as a nurse. My dad was a drywaller. Like we didn't have a lot of technology. We didn't even have like cable or direct TV. My dad became a realtor, and then he got a cell phone, and it was almost like a joke in the family is anywhere we went, if the phone rang, he had to answer it. He just had to answer it. And so no matter whatever was going on, his attention could be pulled. All you have to do is call his phone. Pros and cons. And it's still to this day. You call him, he'll pick up no matter what. Driving in the middle of the car, he'll be like, whatever's going on. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm just here at the doctor's office. I'm like, Dad, you can just not answer and just like tell me, call me after the doctor, whatever it is. And but so I think I see some of that, and I was like, oh, I don't want some of the outcomes of that. So I almost I overcorrect sometimes. And so I'm like, I'm going to be only present, or just like hyper present where I'm at. And if I'm not face to face, then I'm unavailable. And so that was my mindset about it. And I think I got I got convicted that this was the day before September 10th. So I don't know if that catalyzed it as well for me. Literally September 9th. And I was, we're putting on an event. And honestly, Mario was talking about presenting. And there's all sorts of folks talking about why they post a million times a day, blah, 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 blah. And it was, for me though, the piece of it that like resonated, I was like, why don't I post? And I started to like just document for myself, like, why don't I post? And one of those things was like, I don't care enough about my community. Now, it's not that I don't care at all about them, but like I don't care enough to be like, this is an uncomfortable thing. It is a challenge. How do I do this and still be present with that? And so I've decided whatever the caring threshold was, it wasn't enough to find a way to do it well or to do it and manage all these kind of tensions there. And I think I felt convicted about that. I was like, okay, I want to care. And that's like, I think I don't know, been gifted with a little bit of like self-awareness, or I'm not ashamed of self-awareness. I think this, for me, it comes down to like a faith thing. Like I live every day in full confession that I am broken, I am imperfect. Like the root of me is evil. Like I that's not like a crazy concept for me. It's like a core truth for me. And so the idea that like I could analyze by my actions and decide this is what I actually apparently believe. So I think some folks that feel so like, I don't know, hyper judgmental, like I don't care enough about my audience, was like, well, no, I didn't. My actions would dictate that I did not care enough to find a way. And I decided, well, I want to care more. I want to find a way. And so that was the shift there. And then I think the day after seeing what happened to Charlie Kirk, I was like, well, now I can never. It became like a controversial thing for folks. For me, you got to understand, it's like, if you're going to see yourself in a person, here's like, I'm a white Christian male, may as well be me. You know what I mean? It like, so yeah, if somebody's going to feel like, whoa, that's startling, I guess it's me. And so in the same way I get other folks don't feel that way, it's like, well, I got to be honest about me. That is me in so many characteristics and identities. Obviously, every person is unique, but it's like, yeah, I identify as a Christian. I identify as a white male. Like I have a family. And so is those pieces of connection that actually resonated deeper in me, is like those parts of his identity where it's like, oh, that was like a young, like guy with a young family. That was like someone who was bold about their faith, and for whatever else people will say, talking about subjects that people disagree about is fundamentally very difficult. I actually think he did it better than most. I actually can't think of many others that would willingly put themselves in a position to face disagreement. So whatever, it's controversial. It's not controversial in my mind. I resonated, and I was like, I don't want to say it's not controversial in my mind. It's okay for me to identify with the person who looks and is very similar to me. I can identify with other folks that are very different, but like, I'm not going to deny the fact that resonated. And so I think that catalyzed it for me, at least from the point of just recognizing that darkness, like, well, let's just say evil thrives in darkness, just absolutely thrives. And so the absence of my voice was, I don't know, I felt like a different level of like responsibility, I think. And so I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's just the truth. Is like I was going along, I'm pre-programmed a little bit to not love social media or love the like divided attention that it creates, but I've challenged myself to try and find a way, and I think I'm doing it imperfectly. I'll tell you, there's been days my wife does not love. She's like, this is a weird contrast where it takes a little something away to try and document the journey. You know what I mean? It just does. And I'm just still actively navigating that to figure out like how to do this in a healthy way. The joke initially was like, no, Matt's going to monetize. I'm not even monetized. I don't even have professional mode on it. I've heard like in professional mode, you can schedule posts. I can't schedule anything. I'm literally just like, if you see me doing it, I'm just muscling it across every single time. And there's been super cool things that I've learned out of it. But I love a professional mode, something I could schedule the posts, and then I would totally batch do it. That's how I do everything else. Like YouTube, I come set aside chunks of hours, we create, we edit, and we publish regularly, but I don't have to, the probably new video went live today. I had nothing to do with it, right? So like, I just know that like on Tuesday, I hung out for 4 hours and recorded content. Today was probably a video that was recorded 3 weeks ago or whatever it is. I love that it's possible in our digital world. For me right now, it's not possible on social media. I'm just doing it onesies, one at a time.
It's that darn profile, you know? They just don't want us to use it for business.
I, I don't know
You
what
can
it is.
schedule it now. If you turn on professional, you can schedule from your
That
profile.
I think if you have, yeah, but like
Yeah.
I went through the support because I'm like paid whatever for the check mark. I was like, oh, great, cool, I got support. That I'm like, sorry, it's just not up. I was like, and it's weird too because I have professional mode on Instagram. I wonder, it was this weird. uh, my personal profile, I've got a page called Matt Deseno, and then I've got my Instagram. There's only one Instagram, and my Instagram will post to my page, but not to my profile. And so I also don't know if I just need to like abandon my profile and go to the page. That's what Molly does. Molly, her like main engagement personality on Facebook is not actually her profile, it's her page, which I didn't even realize, but that was like who I always connected with and chatted with, and it was just her actual, if that makes sense, the business page under her name, which I have one of those too. So maybe that's the solution. I need to shift that way, but I feel like it's most of my engagement I've done just under my profile.
You know, Matt, and I'm completely in agreement with Bridget. You've been seeing you post and seeing you being your true, authentic self has been incredibly inspiring, and I feel like I've gotten to know you so much better than I ever did before. And which I was kind of scrolling back. I think we've known each other since probably 2020,
I think
not
so. I think it's 5 years.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been a long time, but I can't help but wonder in this process, you talked about not being present, but is there anything behind the scenes? Like, is there any type of apprehension or was in the beginning, was there a little bit of fear of putting yourself out there or being that authentic? I mean, you've
That's,
broken the barrier and now you are obviously much more comfortable with it. But
yeah.
what was it like in the beginning?
Oh yeah, and I posted about this. So the first post, I was like feeling this conviction. I was like, I'm just gonna jump and do it. I've just learned enough of that muscle to be like, if I feel like I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I love Bridget. You guys are the same way. You're like, I didn't want to do the podcast. Doing the podcast. Here we go. And so one of the things when I was like listing it out was I was recognizing we live in this distorted world of comparison. It's very easy to say, I don't participate, therefore I don't have to have my joy robbed when I underperform what I'm exposed to. It's a weird thing about this in social media is what do you get served with, the stuff that goes viral. So it starts to like create this distorted expectation that like, well, post like, oh, that one has 30,000, whatever views, thousands of shares. Like you very rarely get served, it sounds silly to say, but you don't get served the stuff that doesn't have mass distribution, which makes sense because if you did get served it, then it would have mass distribution. So if I scroll 10 posts, like 9 out of 10 are going to be getting a ton of engagement. That's why they're getting served to me. Like it's a sort of self-fulfilling cycle there. So it creates this comparison loop, expectation loop. So I remember I made my first post in this season, and I forget there was 50 comments or something like that. To me, I was like, oh, how little. Somebody else commented though, and to them they're like, oh, of course the person posts about never posting gets 50 comments, must be nice, kind of a thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, isn't that funny? This constant comparison we live in. So there was definite hesitation in recognizing that even now, it's so funny. I think people should probably. I still hold myself to like 5 to 20 times a day, and the days where I do 20 posts in a day, 17 go nowhere and 3 get a little bit of movement. And I think you don't know that because you only see the 10% of people's posts that like have traction. And so you think like, I still get the comments now regularly, like, oh, Matt, your stuff is popping. I was like, you don't see 80%, 90% of the stuff that I'm posting gets nothing, just nothing there. So it's been I think it just reinforces that muscle. I think I've already learned and grown in entrepreneurship this idea of I just learned there was a book, I've never read the book, but it's called Go for No. The whole idea was like, seek out the rejection. That's where you win in entrepreneurship. If you start to quantify success as how many no's did I get in a day, you'll go very far because that's it's just more common. So if you're just reshape your reward centers to be like, I want that no, and you're like, cool, another dud post. Let me see if I can get another one. Let me see get another one, and whatever dud means. But so there's definitely a comparison game, and it can rob you from joy. I think the creative, this isn't bad, but like you can get into a creating trap if you're creatively minded. It's not bad, but it is a self-serving endeavor. Like you want the thing polished, or you've got a funny idea, or you go like, and that's kind of fun. Entrepreneurship, it's magical in that way, but it often is an inverse relationship where it's like, I even have now, I've got certain posts, man, I work on them for like weeks. Now it's like a lot of junk throughout, not junk, but like a lot of stream of consciousness has it posted it kind of, but there's other ones like, I'm going to make this one creative and fun and good or whatever it is. I'm going to go above and beyond. And I don't know what it is, but like those are almost always the ones that get like no traction. And you're like, I literally spent 3 hours on this post.
I can relate to that.
For 6 people to like it. What am I doing? And so in those moments, it's actually like a funny positive thing when you're like, I didn't even think about it. I posted it and like, oh, tons of people really resonate with this topic. How cool. I don't have to think that hard. I published it. It was good. It's the ones where you spend a lot of time on it and then nothing happens and you're like, it was all a waste. All those moments. I have to really separate the activity and be like doodling. I mean, this is funny. People don't realize this, but like actually there's a great book called Draw to Win. And it's like a practical small little book. I don't know my bookshelf here, but called Draw to Win. And it's like, hey, if you can illustrate concepts, it really resonates with people. And it's literally like the art of stick figures, like doodling for illustrating concepts. And I find that it's a fun hobby. Like I practice doodling characters because they do little things like, well, try a different hairstyle, like give it a hat, like give it, and those little things, they just fire off different centers in the brain when we're communicating. Anywho, I say that because my doodling practice, in some level, it's like a little, I think people would be surprised to know that like I practice doodling. I should post about that. Like here's me practicing doodling. But then if I'm presenting and I got the little giant iPad over here and I go into it, I think that's why people enjoy it a little bit more because you're like, oh, this is on the surface, you're like, he's just doodling concepts, but it's like everything in life, you practice, you get better at it. And that's a form of communication that I think people enjoy. I enjoy it. I love posts that illustrate a concept. So you've got kind of like this visual component to the written or the, the heard space there. And, but I recognize me upgrading my doodling skill from like 50% to 70%. It's just me. And so in the same way, those posts that dud, if I can be like, you know what, the win was, I got to practice a new skill. I got to like test something out. I got to maybe go for no and find something that doesn't work. It helps a little bit, but that's one layer of uneasiness. It's funny. Engagement or it's the disinterest that feels harder than the people like that are contrarian or want to debate or want to fight. I'm like, because it feels like it resonates. I feel like the hardest feedback loop is not like someone's going to judge me on my belief or my stance. I posted today. I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little contrarian. So I forget I was posting about something about, ethical profit margins. So interesting. I mean, all the stuff that's going on now, it's like, there's a lot of anti-business, which my little center is a lot of business owners. So of course everyone's like, no, I resonate with it. But I was like, well, extend it further. Like, should there be minimum wage? So these kind of topics, I actually don't care. Like, makes people feel uneasy. I'm like, well, I just like the conversation, I like the discussion. And so maybe it's a bad example because I don't feel as, I don't know, deep and core to me. I think I live in California. So a lot of my, I like live my life. It's weird to say. I live my life as a contrarian. It's like I am big churches, small government, big self-sacrifice. I say big churches. I just mean like I would prefer more good being done from that side than in the government. And in California, that's so contrarian. Like, so I live my life in like this zone of just like day-to-day life. And I've gotten, I think the more I do it online, I was going to say it makes me more in person, but I've never shied away from hard conversations. I think it's just easier to do face to face. I think I recognize that the level of human connection that exists when you're in person makes those conversations more productive. I think that's also, is like, I don't love I really deeply consider the fruit of my actions or my words. Like, what is this ultimately growing into? And I mean, for the last, how long have I been an adult? I'll say post college. It's been 13 years out of college, and in that kind of like grown up world, where, you know, living in Malibu, Santa Monica, there's lots of opportunities for conversations that are hard, and whatever it might be. So it catalyzes like this too. It's like there's certain actions that I choose not to take. I'll give an example of one. This comes up in person. I think people notice it more so in person than you would online, because maybe people are more common to be polished there. But and if someone's new to me, I don't know how to say this sincerely, but I do not consider myself, in the day to day, I'm not like a self-righteous person. I literally live in the constant tension of awareness of how broken I am. I'm like there's so many things I do horribly, very poor, and even in tension with my own self on. And maybe this is helpful to know, is I did not grow up in like a family of believers. So my faith feels very contrarian. My beliefs in my state feel very contrarian. It's funny. It's like, if I was raised in the Bible, I might be like the totally different person, because I think one of the defining characteristics of me is just contrarian. So like, you know, timing, place, it felt very much so just against whatever was there. And so I can't even bring myself to curse, to use vulgar language. This is weird. This is like, Matt, you're an adult, you can't do that. It's like, I have very core trauma memories around that kind of language. And so for me, this was not even a faith construct. It was just this felt like the antithesis of who I want to be and what I want to put my family through, or anything like that. It's just like that. Honestly, it's weird to say, but like that action is more of a conviction of who I don't want to be like, rather than, you know, like I want to be a good Christian or anything like that. But in the day to day, like people, it happens. These sort of things people will notice and catch on to. And then they'll ask the question, because it's like, well, you know, if you're at some point, now it's weird. It's weird that you're not talking like everybody else. It's weird that like literally it just doesn't exist in the vocabulary. And
you're not of the world.
Maybe yeah, that's a great answer. I think that's what I mean, is like, that is a really well, I think like righteous is the right word. That is a really aspirational identity. I think for me, it's not coming from that place. I think it's like it's a beautiful byproduct there. I say that to be like, because I feel like if that was the case, it could come off like, man, you're so self-righteous. And I'm really not. This is independent of my faith. I couldn't reconcile this. And it'd be like, I don't know, it's like I also don't love wooden spoons. You guys know those wooden spoons that come with like the cup of ice cream? That is my nails on a chalkboard. These are two things in my life. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And
It's a weird sensory thing, right?
That's a weird sensory thing. But you're like, that's not me trying to be like a better person. It's just like, I can't do that. So this is like that language thing, can't do it. And wooden spoons, can't do it. But it creates those conversations where people ask. And so it's like in my real life, it's like, that's the thing. I had a conversation Monday, just a couple days ago. There was, our sons have gone to this Christian preschool, and there's a big private school attached to it, and they just opened up the elementary. They were just high school and they opened up elementary. They're doing a tour there. We're walking through, and I just start talking to a parent, and her first question was kind of like, oh, I'm worried it's too, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like too Jesus-y. It's kind of the thought process there. And her basis was almost like, well, in California, like, are you a crazy person, Matt? Like, I just met you, you know? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm a crazy person. I'm not a crazy person, but it's like, no, that for me, that is actually a core identity. But what I love is we were able to establish a genuine human connection. Literally later, like this is hours into the tour thing, because I just talked to her through our experience and all that sort of stuff there, circling around. She kind of like didn't know anybody else. And so it's like I was connecting with folks, I knew folks. So she's like centered over there and coming to the conversation. And by the end of it, she was saying to other folks, like, he's just so I don't know if it was like friendly or it's just like, because they thought like I worked for the school. Like I was like, this is a brand new school. I'm not part of it. And I was like, oh, I'm just here to be like a friendly navigator and stuff like that. And finding pieces of just common human connection. I love that. But by the end of it, it's like, I'm not going to walk away and not invite her to this. I'm like, I'm not going to walk away and not be excited like her, son. Cause she was saying like, I'm just worried this is the message that my son gets at school. And is it different than what's at home? I'm like, no, I think it'll be great. No, but I don't know what to say. I think you're asking about like the tension there. I think I get reps for that just being in California. It is it's probably in other states too, but like the default is, I mean, we just had a political thing, whatever. They voted for gerrymandering, and it was very much like a party line divide. And it was like 65% in favor. I was not expecting that much of a sweep. We're like, okay, there it is. You know what I mean? Like absolutely bigger government. And I try to meet people where they're at, but I'm not shy about who I am, because I'm like, you need more examples of me. That feels weird to say. Like, you need more examples of folks where you can be like, I thought they were crazy, but that person was actually really nice to talk to, really friendly, really helpful. And I hope, my prayer is, she thought to herself, if my son grew up like him, that wouldn't be the worst thing. And that's what I feel like. I feel like I use this word in our work all the time now, or like in I'd say in the office, in the company, is positive peer pressure. Like I'm here for it. I'm totally fine being positive peer pressure. And, cause there's so much other negative peer pressure. Like it's like peer pressure doesn't not exist either in silence or, active voices there. And I think it's very easy. And I catch myself of just like head down, solve your problems, do it in the day. And now it's like, as uncomfortable it is, I feel, I don't know, convinced to just find a way to healthfully lift my head up more, meet people where they're at, bring people into that reality. But I think it's, yeah, I don't know. Rant over. Sorry for going so long. We
no, you're good.
Stuff there.
I think a lot of us, especially, people like in the public eye, we're kind of, it's hard for us to figure out how to share our faith in a way that's not like a super turnoff. And instantly we do get, I say I'm a Christian, and immediately there's all these things you think about me, which is so unfortunate, because like to us, we're like, I realize I'm a broken person and I need help in life. That's really all I'm trying to do over here. So please don't think negative things about me. But also, I feel like it is part of just shining your light. And just, if I went on a diet and lost 100 pounds, people would be like, Bridget, what did you do? And so I want people to see the joy and feel the joy in me and be like, what is that? Where does that come from? and then that gives me the opportunity to talk about it. But I do want to ask you, Matt,
Yeah.
where does this come from? Where did this start? Like, you weren't raised in a Christian household, but how did this come about?
That's it was, I think there's one person. His name's Bryant Cuffey. And so he was a youth pastor, got hired into a church that didn't have a building. And so they started meeting down the street from me. So on our street. So you've got, and so there was kids that we knew, the Napiers. And that was like the point of introduction there. Zoom out. There was converging things there. So like that was the actual catalyst. I ended up getting mentored. I don't know. He saw something in me and just kind of took me under his wing a little bit in my mind. So this was I don't know how tall he is, 6'4" black dude from Dominica who could dunk. And I'm like this freshman in high school. I'm like, this is the coolest human being in the world. And so it's just like I remember he came over to our house and we had the basketball hoop in like the front yard and he dunked on it. I was like, oh, I'll listen to anything you say. You got instant authority in my book. The bar was low, or I don't know. But so that was literally like the spark of it. It was like crystallized in the conflict. There was a couple of converging things happening at the same point. There is the real estate the market was like rumbling and crashing. There was my dad went into real estate. So my mom retired, or he did well. He was a great talker, connected with folks, did very well. So then she retired, stopped working, and then real estate like, and just fell apart. And in that point, it gave a ton of financial pressure on the family and it exposed some unhealthy behaviors. And I think now that I think about it, it's like legacy, just generational brokenness. My dad's dad, I never knew. So my grandfather, he was a con man and he was just pretty bad person. Like when he passed away, people were like, it was sort of like a good riddance sort of a situation there. And so like I get my dad in so many ways was trying to be better than his dad, better than his example, trying to not be that way. And I think there was behaviors modeled and stuff like that were ingrained and under pressure. You know what I mean? It just can expose that. And so that really like solidified it for me. It's so interesting. But like this Bryant was, he had like a double master's from Biola. He was a deep thinker, philosopher, and it was in like philosophy and theology and divinity and like just a very studious person. And he, I don't know, we had no business as like young high schoolers. And he'd be like, I don't know, he just saw a piece of, I like to read. And so he just gave me these books. And I remember like trying to think, this is like, fresh. I don't know how many people, maybe it's common. I don't know. St. Thomas Aquinas and like all these like theologians is my space there where I'm like, I don't even quite know all of like the Sunday school Bible stories, but I'm getting these like concepts of like, oh, it makes sense that like the divine law would be reflected in the natural law and these things. So it was almost like from a rational standpoint, it was presented, or a very like philosophical, theological standpoint of like, that T.S. Eliot quote of like I think it's T.S. Eliot of the truth has nothing to fear from exploration. I was like, we just want to find out what's true. Don't, like, if it's true, you're going to want to live into this. So let's explore, like, let's investigate. And that was shaping me. Like that was deeply shaping into how I approach a lot of things. And then I went to school at Pepperdine, was a Christian university. And I knew nothing about it. It was like in Malibu. I knew it was like Christian. Some friend was like, they're great at tennis. I was like, okay, I'll go over there. But I didn't know that was actually my introduction to kind of like denominationalism, or like even understanding denominations. So it was like in adulthood, I still didn't fully understand differences, distinctions, all that sort of stuff. And so, but I think I've still kind of I've never felt pulled or drawn or offended by uniqueness and differences in people there. And so the yeah, it was interesting. People, so Pepperdine, school in Malibu, they were founded, they're Church of Christ, which is an interesting like denominational distinction. Well, they kind of say they're not denomination, but they don't believe, or there's a legacy of a cappella in the services, no instruments. And I'm a musician, and I never thought God doesn't like guitar or drums, and they don't say that. That's not part of their theology. It's more of like their tradition. But it was a very contrast of I didn't even know this was a defining thing. Like we were debating some churches don't believe in guitars. I didn't know that was the thing. It's not they don't believe in guitars, but in that space, it was it very clearly felt like flavor preferences to me. It's like my wife who cannot handle spicy food and me who loves spicy food. And I'm like, there's no right and wrong here. This is, I love the color green. She loves the color purple. I put a ton of salsa. She puts no salsa. No one's caring. This is clearly not a critical divide. This is preferential. So that was the background of Matt's faith journey. And I'm shaped. There's no way to say something without somebody finding something offensive about it, which is just what I realized there too. And so I'll say the louder you are, the more folks are going to be offended. And that actually I got comfortable with before even recently posting. So my comfort with being here's what I think, and someone's going to be offended by it, because I've seen people are offended by success. Actually, that was probably the most surprising thing to me, is there are folks who are they root for you on the way up and they cheer for you to fall once you've accomplished whatever it is that they were hoping to accomplish. Folks never met, for no other basis. You're you seem like you're succeeding. Boo. You're that's a thing? My contrarian stance is that I work hard and some things have worked out. So many other things have not worked out, but and so I think it was around probably when I started running Facebook ads. I didn't run Facebook ads for ourselves. Well, that's not true. We didn't run Facebook ads for HL Pro Tools. So my face on it until 2023. And so for 3 years, it was just word of mouth. That was it. 2023, started running ads. And that was probably the first time where I was oh, wow. People, I don't know. They just don't they don't like you for another reason than you're doing it at some sort of volume, some sort of scale there. And so,
isn't it great to not worry about that though? It's all
you still worry about it.
But Matt, you're so great though. And look, this is what I've told you before. It's if you don't share who you are, people won't care who you are. So you have to be a little bit controversial in the sense that people see what's important to you. And people, they feel like they know you. When you did the video where you said, I don't know if you guys realize this, but I pray for you every day. And I just thought that's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
I'll say this. If people don't know this, this is actually one of my, if you got a spouse and you're doing business, it's super hard on the significant, people, it's hard to account for how much of a weight that is, because it's just much, being a business owner, you're taking a lot of risks. There's a lot of uncertainty there. Doesn't matter how successful you are. It just feels like in a minute it could flip, right? Anything could happen. But so if you're the person, the significant other, someone else is doing it, you feel the same risk, but a lot less control. You're sitting there feeling like this could be good, this could be bad. Maybe we've budgeted our life around this happening. What if it doesn't happen, right? One of my wife's favorite things, she tells me now, she's it gives her so much confidence is she hears my business owner and I pray every morning. And so we just do it over the phone. And it's not that you should do it for your spouses, but I think unintended benefits, if you're a person of faith, conviction, whatever it is, especially if you have a partner in the business, for your spouses, for your business partners, for yourself, maybe it goes without saying, but I actually think sometimes it's the collective accountability And I find that with like Graham and I is like, because we have the habit now, there's definitely mornings where I'm like, I'm thinking about some fire, something, or whatever it is. It's easy to get distracted and miss the foundational things. But when you build that habit with other folks, it strengthens it. It becomes a situation where you kind of both can lean on each other to keep that alive. But it's actually only been something this year where Erica's expressed that. My wife Erica has expressed that like she's felt more peace this year than ever before. And it's not just like insulated bank accounts, because I'll tell you, this year, in the last year, we had 2 years ago, it's actually 2 years ago, we bought the property I'm on right now, and it was a dream property. This was, it's got land, it's got space, it's a community with animals, and this is like outside of LA, massive ranch style home. We didn't have the stairs, all sort of stuff, 2 buildings on the property. This was a dream. Like this was a dream, very unreal. We bought it, and then we made the whole thing a dream. And it was just like, it was a big outpour, big expense and investment. We're like, this is a space we want to plant our roots. And I also feel like I've learned, I can show up. Well, this is what I find. These are things that Erica cares about deeply. But I care about how she feels cared. So many of these things were things that like I could care less. I actually, if you look at my office, it's funny. It's constantly, no matter what room it is, it's constantly like very utilitarian. Like what's in shot is good. Everything else around here is just a mess, and I feel unaffected by it. Is it like I very utilitarian. That's me. That'd be my room. Everything I'd be like, I'm like, I only want a sheet at night, so I don't want a duvet or a cover. Like I just a sheet on the bed. That's fine. And I want one pillow because that's all I need. I would be the utilitarian in like a military cot. She's not that way. But giving her a space where she feels like she can serve, she can host, she can just show up best for our kids and have it designed in a way where it's safe for them. All the things that she deeply thinks about has been a worthwhile investment. We had to do this project twice. We went through one contractor who scammed us. We didn't realize it, and it was kind of a weird unintentional scam, but he mismanaged his subs. And so at like the finish line, we realized like, we've paid you 90%, but none of this stuff is done. And there was like stuff that had to be completely redone, like because we had gutted it down. So bathrooms, like literally all the bathrooms we had to re-gut and redo because they didn't waterproof it. They put like drywall behind like the shower. You could see it sticking out. There was like pocket doors, and they'd somehow filled in like the doors in the wall, and concrete got into the pocket of the wall and filled up the wall. And you're like, well, you're right. The whole time we never tested the doors, but like I'm going to be able to open these doors. So we did the project twice. It probably got tighter for us in the last year than it had been in the last 5 years. And also like a thing where it's like, we're already spending absurd amounts of money. Like typically I'm a big believer in like your rich life is the gap between what you have and what you want. And so I like to keep a big gap there. Or I guess it's like what I have and what I want, right? Live, not only, it's like, maybe that's contentment. Like rich is what you need and what you want, what you have, or it's like what you have and what you need is one level. It's like what you have and what you want. Like I want it to be, or reverse that. Like I have this much and I literally want this much. Like I could not even imagine wanting this other gap there. So what do? Get to be incredibly generous, get to like put our family in a place where they feel stable. So anywho, all that aside, in the last year, more financially on the edge and stretched than we've been in the last 5 years. And she's saying, I feel more peace than I have in the last 5 years because she hears it every morning. And so even in that zone where it's like, oh gosh, there's so many, like we did the whole project. This is blowing my mind. Literally November. I'll give the quick version. November we were supposed to move in. So we were trying to move in before Lily was born. This is a year ago now. We had already owned the property for a year. The 7th, Erica's dad passes away in the doorway. Incredibly traumatizing for the entire family. It was just like they said it was like what's it called? Like a widowmaker, heart attack. Came like coming home from work, and we live close to her parents, super close with them. They were in our lives every single day, and this happens, and we were supposed to move in November to the house because we're supposed to move in before Lily was born, and it just spiraled everything. And so in like this happened. And I think in her kind of like grief response, she just went into kind of like little, less politeness around these things. Like of just like, hey, my dad just died in front of me. So like, I don't feel that bad for you. Right. And this is like engagement with the contractor because we're like trying to just get it done in the process. Like literally the next week, we're like, we got to move in. We got to get this done. And we find out like it's like a facade of done. Like they'd redone the pipes, but they hadn't connected them. They were just sitting in the attic, like hanging out there. They had done the kitchen, but they didn't like attach the things to the wall. And you pull it off the wall, and like the outlets aren't even done. Like all these, like we're thinking like appliances delivered, and we should be able to move in. It was so far from done. And Lily's born, and we. Just in that craziness, they hired a whole nother contractor to start from scratch. They gutted almost everything. They didn't have to re-demolish the walls that had taken down, but like all the bathrooms, all the flooring, all the kitchen, all of it had to be redone. And so it was like to spend another $400,000 in like, I think we finished it by March. We moved in April, right before Easter. I actually don't know where I was going with that story, but there's a little tidbit of recent rawness. All to say that on one hand, I'm sure people are listening. They're like, "Must be nice, man, $400,000." I'm like, I fully recognize that it is an absolute privileged position, and we had, there's a whole
It
other
was still a storm that you went through. You know what I'm
it,
saying?
oh
So
yeah,
it's not really about the money. And I remember, I have total compassion for your wife because I remember when my mom died, she was in the hospital a week before she passed. But I just remember like so many conversations, and with my husband or anyone else, even like people, contacted me to plan the funeral because I'm the oldest, and they'd say, oh, well, we're going to talk, or my husband would say, oh, I saw so-and-so on TV or whatever. And I would just blurt out, I don't care. My mom just died.
mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care. Like, it is a very like overwhelming feeling that just takes like top precedence in your life. It's hard to like think about anything else because it's like, how is the world moving on? Because my mom just died,
Mm.
and I'm sure that your wife felt like that in the middle of all this stuff. But what's cool, Matt, is she got peace knowing that you're praying because, see, as women, we're naturally like, we see a man praying and we're like, oh, I like him already.
Mm.
And now as wives, seeing our husband pray, it's like, okay, he's not trying to do all this on his own. He's got help. He knows who to go to for help. So that gives her the peace.
Yeah, we were just talking about this yesterday. In fact, Bridget, that, there's, to me, from a human perspective, there's nothing more attractive than a man that shares his faith. And we as women, we want to see people lead with their faith and share their faith. And that, to me, it's so important that even we as Christians edify people when they do share their faith, because a lot of times in business it can be really hard to step into that. And so we never know, I think, what other people like, is this the one post that they're sharing that really meant something to them, and just a little bit of encouragement along that way. And I would say even, in business, trying to encourage and bring other people along in their journey. And because a lot of times we read it but did we like it or did we love it? And so I think people are watching, Matt. They're watching your contributions, like your wife and your business partner and even your community, and they're seeing you lead. And so you just understand that you are really carrying that, and it's making an impact.
I appreciate that. I love the like the echoes of that. I guess this is like the unintentional consequences of leadership. Initially, it's like leading yourself, or it's like, actually for me, it's like being a good leader is being a good follower. Like I'm just trying to like be faithful in those things. If it turns into positive peer pressure, I'm here for it. But it is, I don't know, like those are there were so many stories actually at the summit being in person with folks, and kind of a recurring theme too, where it was like they saw me showing up, or sometimes it was like stuff where it'd been like years. That was actually cool stuff where in small ways, but there was stuff that was said or things that were given or just existing, years ago, and to circle back and say, here's been the positive impact after all this time. But yeah, a lot of folks saying like, keep showing up. And so I'm glad this, I remember that we walked out of that conversation and I said, Bridget, I think you should do a podcast. And so I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah. And when you said that, I was immediately like, oh, duh, with Marla. So I'm like, you got a call, and I made sure you shoot away because that was your wife. She's the number one most important person in the world to you. And then as soon as you walked away, I turned around and looked at Marla. I was like, yeah, you want to do a podcast? And she said, yes. I was like, all right, this is perfect. I love it. I love it. So Matt, is there anything that you feel like the community, the HighLevel community, doesn't know about you that you would like to share?
That's a great question. They don't know about me that I would like to share. I think this is not obvious, but I've struggled for a long time with feeling like the best I should expect of myself or other people around me is like a B+. I don't know what that makes sense, but I've not had a lot of categories of like high achievement, where I always looked at like there's someone else who's like they're the amazing athlete, or they're the amazing musician, or they're the amazing speaker, or they're the amazing whatever. And I was kind of like, well, I'll just be the B+. Like I'm here for it. I'm having fun. I'm trying my best, and like B+ is going to be fine for us. I've really been challenged the last year of that's not the call. And so I guess what I want people to know is that I'm sorry that I've had that standard of for myself, for our team, for our business. And I think this is what you were saying earlier, Marla, is like you want to look at the leader and be like, okay, this is going to direct it there. And my commitment, I've said for a long time, but I think this just reshapes this, is I will continue to grow in humility. I will continue to be and be open to feedback and be self-aware enough to recognize where growth needs to happen. And I think more recently, I've started to dial up expectations for myself, for the team. You saw it at the event. I was like, I'm going to show up every morning at 6:30, because maybe that's part of what like leading is like I'm going to set high standards. I'm going to live them to myself, and I'm going to attract people around me that can live up to those standards. And so I just know, being in business for this much time, it often does reflect the leader. And I know there's been aspects of what we do that have been, I'd call it like B+. And that's because I almost didn't think I had permission in my life in certain categories to be A+. And I think it's not of myself, but I think it is like a true, honest, fair reflection of, I think, what God has put in me. It should be something absolutely undeniably excellent. And so that's a new standard for us. But I think people, it's worth knowing that I'm self-aware, and challenging myself and our team to hold a higher standard.
Well, I think everyone watching and listening, you just heard it from the man himself. HO Pro Tools is leveling up in 2026, said Matt Deseno. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to more of the shows.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Thanks for being on, Matt. Wow, Bridget, that was awesome. I really enjoyed getting to talk with Matt and understanding a little bit more about his background, and even just letting him know how much we are both enjoying his post on social media. What was like one key takeaway that you gathered from the his conversation?
I loved hearing that he had, a challenging childhood. And I also loved hearing that there was a person in the neighborhood who saw something in Matt. And he was someone that Matt could look up to, literally and figuratively, because he was 6'4", he said. But I just feel like that's so how God works. It's like here, if you imagine like little boy Matt, who is struggling, to manage feelings and all of those things. And then here, God puts someone in his life, because that's what I truly believe. God puts someone in his life to say, these might be your current circumstances, but I'm preparing you for much more. And I just feel like that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, and I think it's on that note, it's so important that we recognize that as we are sharing different aspects of our life, whether it's just being a kind person or your faith or business or personal, that we truly have an impact on the people around us. I don't think that person, I mean, it could be wrong, but I don't necessarily think that person met Matt and thought, you know what, I'm going to change his life. I'm going to lead him to Christ. But as it was through just great behavior, that
Mhm.
I'm sure that he had impact over time. And that's so incredible that he was able to share that story. I love that too. Um, and I think, also like for me, understanding that he had his own obstacles that he dealt with in his family, and sometimes despite all of those or in spite of all of those, we can be great entrepreneurs and change the things that we don't like, and allow the good things to impact who we want to be. I thought that was a great way for him to communicate that.
Mhm. I also love that he said, his wife feels more peace hearing him pray in the mornings. And we did talk about how, us as women, we want security. That's what we look for. Like men, they feel loved when they're respected, and women, we feel loved and cared for when we feel secure, both in our relationship, but also in our husbands or the men in our lives that are leading us. The Bible wants us to be submissive wives, but the man has to be a leader for us to even have in our hearts to want to submit. And so I think that's a beautiful thing that his wife, who knows him better than anybody else, feels that comfort and security in hearing him pray because she knows who's leading him. She doesn't have to have faith in Matt's skills. She has faith in the one who's leading him along the way. So I just think it's a beautiful testimony of having faith and letting God lead us in business, but also in our marriage and relationships.
I hope that Matt will come on for another round because I have other questions. Like I want to know about what his faith has, or how his faith has impacted his team, right? Not just, his wife or Graham, but I'm very curious how that plays in just with his team. And then also, I think that it would be great to understand a little bit more about. I think he has shared some things about homelessness and just embracing that community. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that as well. So I'm hoping that maybe we can get around to with him.
Yeah, because I want to save this story for next time because we're definitely going to have Matt on again.
Yeah.
But for those of you who don't know, just a little like glimmer of the story, Matt actually chose to be homeless for 2 weeks. He chose this. So, of course, we're going to have to get into the story with Matt, but think about what type of person makes a conscious decision to be homeless. And not just that, but like think about at night when he would go lay down to go to sleep, and that, like, it could be so easy to just go home, to just call someone to pick you up. But like, what makes a person continue that experiment, will you will, if you will, or continue that knowing that he could just stop anytime? That is a fascinating story we have to dive into.
And what makes a person begin that experiment?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta know.
Exactly. I know. I gotta
Yeah.
know.
Part
Stay
2.
tuned for part 2 of the Matt Deseno podcast.
Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.